So as we get back into the habit of making Marvel comic videos, as we get back into this sort of mindset, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of take a break from the status quo that we've created so far, but only for this video. Instead of making you guys wait until Monday to do Civil War issue number 4, we're going to go ahead and really add this video to our tie-in Thursday series of videos. And the reason for this is because, one, there are no tie-ins between Civil War issue number 3 and issue number 4. That was something I had previously misspoke about. But the other reason for this is because you all have been extremely patient while I've taken my break. And so rather than making you guys wait until Monday for Civil War issue number 4, and then making you wait until Thursday for the tie-ins for issue number 4 of Civil War, I figured we'd go ahead and do these on Thursday and Monday. So on Thursday we'll do Civil War issue number 4 and we'll do these the tie-ins, and then on Monday we'll finish up the tie-ins and then do Civil War issue number 5. So what we see as the story begins to unfold is that, again, Thor has arrived at the chemical plant where Captain America and Iron Man's forces are fighting, and virtually everyone is surprised to see him, or at the very least everyone on the side of Captain America. And we see individuals like Falcon and Dagger really kind of shocked, and Dagger goes as far as to say that they thought Thor had been killed. But right off the bat, Thor is really kind of acting uncharacteristic and states that Dagger is going to be the one that gets killed, which is not something that Thor normally says. In addition, we see Thor begin to attack Captain America's forces with relentless fashion. And again, this is uncharacteristic, and the reason for this is because some of Captain America's forces are friends of Thor, and Thor is not one to arbitrarily attack his friends without question. Now, as we begin to see his attack continuing on Captain America's forces, Dagger really kind of panics and says that they need to get out of here, that something is extremely wrong. But again, Thor continues his attack on Captain America's team. Now from this point, we switch to Captain America and Iron Man. And what's really kind of interesting here is that Iron Man is offering aid to Captain America. He's telling Captain America they will give him medical treatment if he'll just surrender. Now, the way that Captain America really kind of reacts to this is very important, and I would like you guys to pay very particular attention to this. And the reason why is because Captain America is really kind of an extremist now. He is so ingrained in his idea that anti-registration is the way to go, that the Registration Act is so wrong and so against freedom that he's unwilling to accept any opinion other than his own. And this is very uncharacteristic of Captain America, because throughout all of Captain America's publication history, he's been a very reasonable person. While there may be ideas that are different than his, while he may be walking a certain road, he's always willing to listen to other opinions. He's always willing to listen to what other people say, but we don't see that happening here. And so because Captain America is so entrenched, because he is so unwilling to give up, Iron Man activates a kind of sonic pulse in his armor, which really kind of causes excruciating pain in the minds of all of Captain America's forces, and really kind of puts them in a place where they were unable to continue fighting. But what we see is that Captain America is really able to withstand this sonic pulse, and Iron Man really kind of gives him credit for it. And as Iron Man is beginning to deal the final blow to knock out Captain America, Hercules comes to the rescue of Captain America, and by virtue of throwing a tanker at Iron Man, disables the sonic pulse that had been rendering Captain America's forces unable to fight. From there, the conflict begins again, and everybody begins fighting each other once more. In addition, we see that as Hercules is engaging Iron Man, he calls for Falcon to rescue Captain America, which Falcon successfully does. And of course, Falcon tells Cable that he needs to interface with Cloak's mind so that they can activate a teleport and get everybody out of there. In addition, what we see is Goliath confronting Thor. Now, this is an extremely important part of Civil War, and the reason why is because what we see is that Thor kills Goliath. Now, this is an extremely important thing, and the whole reason why this is so important is for several reasons. The first is that Thor and Bill Foster, Goliath, were very close friends, and Thor attacks him and kills him without question. And so right off the bat, we know that if there were any other kind of indication that something's not right, or this isn't actually Thor, this really kind of solidified it, that there's no way that this is actually Thor, or if it is Thor, his mind has somehow been warped, or his mind has somehow been screwed up so that he doesn't know who his friends are. And what we see as a result of Goliath being killed is that virtually all heads turn. everyone is wildly surprised to see this. Captain America's forces, Iron Man's forces and Captain America's forces, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s forces, everybody is really kind of surprised to see this happen. And because Thor has gone to such an extreme degree and killed someone, all of Captain America's forces go into panic mode, and everybody demands that they retreat in order to get out of there to keep from being killed. In addition, we see Thor continues his assault on Captain America's forces, but Susan Storm comes to their rescue, creating a force field around them that no one can enter, and really tells them to get out of there, to get to safety. In addition, we see that Falcon really kind of thanks her for her effort, that everything is really kind of not going the way that anyone had expected it to. In addition, they ask about the wounded individuals who are part of Captain America's forces who have been injured. Are they going to leave them behind? Of course, Cable replies that you're welcome to stay if you want to, but the best shot for all of them is to get out while they can, which they successfully do using the teleportation capabilities of Cloak. Now, what we see is an indication that, of course, this is not Thor when Reed Richards uses a kind of code to shut down Thor. Now, from this point, everybody starts screaming at Reed Richards. Hank Pym yells at him, says that he thought that there were some kind of directives that were installed in Thor to keep him from doing what it was that he did. In addition, we see that Sue Storm really kind of turns her back on Reed Richards. And this is really kind of interesting here, because while the Fantastic Four really kind of achieved their popularity due to the fact that they would have family infighting, and they were really kind of the real-life version of what you would expect to see in a family, this is really an instance where it's entirely possible that Reed Richards and Susan Storm could split up. Because this kind of action is so extreme that it was something that no one saw coming. It was a severe and fatal mistake on behalf of Reed Richards. In addition, we see that Spider-Man really kind of begins to question Tony Stark, that he says that he thought Tony Stark knew what he was doing, that this kind of plan was implemented to ensure that nobody got hurt. And this is really kind of one of the very baby steps, one of the very first steps that we see with regards to Spider-Man questioning Iron Man. And as we'll see in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 534, he begins to really kind of continue down this path. And one of the final panels that we see in this aspect, this part of the comic, is the Watcher, who's really kind of monitoring these events. And again, this is important because the Watcher only really appears in times of great social upheaval, or in times when an event is about to take place or taking place that could drastically change the landscape of whatever it is that he happens to be looking at that particular point in time. From here, we switch to Avengers Tower, and we see that Iron Man's forces are really kind of recuperating, that they're really kind of, I guess maybe recovering from their injuries, and we see, of course, that Reed Richards is working on the mechanical clone of Thor, and this is when we learn that Thor is actually a machine. This is not in fact Thor. In addition, we see that Hank Pym is really kind of distraught to see that one of his oldest friends, Goliath, had been killed, because Goliath was an individual that Hank Pym had really not necessarily lent his Pym particles to, but had really kind of confronted on several occasions and had really kind of instructed on how to use the Pym particles adequately so that Goliath, Bill Foster, could actually turn into Giant Man whenever it was that he wanted to. In addition, what we see is that, Peter Parker really kind of tells, Ant-Man's wife, Jen Van Dyne, that this really wasn't something they signed up for, that this is really kind of freaky, and that no one really wanted to be part of a group that was willing to go to the extremes of killing people in order to make sure that their plans came to fruition. In addition, Hank Pym really kind of asked the question, why is it that this happened? What happened with Thor? That Tony Stark had been holding on to a hair of Thor's for quite some time, and that's what they used to clone him. And that maybe it was the fact that they didn't instill a conscience in him. There was really no human element to Thor that would really kind of keep him from flipping out the way he did and killing people. And in one of the interesting parts, one of the more important parts when it comes to Peter Parker, is when we see him ask Hank Pym whether or not that they think they've joined the right side. Now from here, we switch to Captain America's headquarters, where his team is really kind of recovered to, where they've kind of retreated to. And again, this is extremely important when it comes to Captain America, and the reason why is because Captain America has really kind of adopted this by any means necessary attitude, meaning that he's really not very remorseful about the fact that Goliath had been killed. The only thing he really cares about at this point is that they win. And again, this is very uncharacteristic of Captain America, and as he's talking with Nighthawk, he's really kind of saying that they're gaining more supporters from Tony Stark's side by the hour, and it's really the only concern that he has. And what we see with Nighthawk is that he's just really not willing to go along with this, and he's really not okay with this kind of attitude that Captain America has adopted, where he's disassociated himself from caring about members of his team and only really cares about winning the fight with Iron Man. And what we ultimately see is a really kind of splitting up of various individuals. We see people really kind of leaving Captain America's team for several reasons. Of course, we see that Cassie, one of the individuals who's part of Captain America's team, leaves because she sees the extreme lengths that Iron Man and his team are willing to go to win their fight, that they are actually willing to allow someone to kill people, which of course we know wasn't the intention, but they don't know that. In addition, we see that some individuals are leaving because they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to have to worry about being captured and sent to whatever kind of location it is they are taking every superhero who has been captured for refusing to register. And what we see here is really kind of everybody bailing out. We really kind of see everybody leaving and taking off. And as we really kind of begin to come to an end with regards to the view of Captain America at their secret hideout, we see someone who's really kind of watching these events unfold from the shadows. Now, this is very important, especially when it comes towards the end and the events after Civil War completely closes out as part of a major Marvel event. Now from here we switch to the Funeral of Goliath, and the Funeral of Goliath is really kind of a chance for us to see Tony Stark, for what he is, to really kind of look at Tony Stark and to say, there's still a chance that Tony Stark isn't necessarily a bad guy, that he did not intend for Bill Foster to be killed. And he really kind of shows his remorse in the sense that because Bill Foster was killed while he was still as a giant, it didn't really offer the opportunity for his body to shrink down, and so 37 burial plots had to be purchased by Tony Stark in order for him to be buried. And of course, Tony Stark said that he did this simply because it was the least that he could do for the family of Bill Foster. In addition, what we also see is that Miss Sharp, who was the mother of one of the children that was killed at the beginning of Civil War, if you recall, she had spat at Tony Stark, approaches him and of course tells him that she's not going to accost him, and that she thinks he's doing the right thing, that Goliath knew what he was doing, that he knew that he was breaking the law, and that this was a very real possibility when he really kind of set down the path that he was going on, and that this really isn't anybody's fault except Goliath's. What we also see is kind of a, comic book panel montage of sorts, where we see that Susan Storm has written a letter to Reed Richards telling him that that Johnny's out of the hospital, that the family's going to be back together again soon, that she should be happy about this, but she's not. And the reason why is because she's so ashamed of what Reed Richards has done. She's ashamed of the fact that Reed Richards had effectively, alongside Iron Man and Hank Pym, created a hero, created a clone that really killed people, that had gone to such a degree that it really had no conscience and was so violent. She really is kind of telling him that, the hands of everybody who was on the side of on the side of Iron Man is soaked in blood, that Bill Foster's blood is on their hands. And what we see is that she's really kind of leaving Reed Richards and leaving Iron Man's side to join the side of Captain America. Now from here, we switch back to Avengers Tower, and what we see is that Ant-Man, Reed Richards, Tony Stark, and Jen Van Dyne are really kind of talking about the 50-state initiative, that the 50-state initiative is this idea of having a superhero team in every state, and that Thor is actually not the only one of its kind that was created by Hank Pym, Reed Richards, and Tony Stark, that there are other superheroes who have been created that way, but they're simply just not ready for combat. And we see, of course, that Reed Richards has assembled a new group of Thunderbolts. Now, the reason for this is because the previous group of Thunderbolts, led by Baron Helmut Zemo, had previously been disbanded due to a set of events that took place outside the events of Civil War, which we won't go into. But the new group of Thunderbolts that have been assembled consist of some very nasty villains, which include Lady Deathstrike and Venom. And so this is again an instance where we see that Iron Man has really just not learned from his mistakes. We see that they're taking precautions to really kind of provide computer chips for these individuals to ensure that that they stay in compliance with the rules that have been laid down for them, and that they will be put back in jail immediately after their services are no longer needed. But again, we really kind of see that Tony Stark, while his heart may be in the right place, while he believes that superhuman registration may very well be the best road to take, that he's making all the wrong decisions to ensure that superhuman registration actually goes through. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.